Wow, it's so good to be here. I'm so excited today to be joining you in this conference, the Transformational Parents and Teachers Conference. I think this is my second time of being in this conference. And I want to thank especially Pastor Dike for this invitation. And I want to also thank him for this amazing work that he's doing. I think this is a very relevant conversation we're having. Just bringing together the key stakeholders. I call them very critical stakeholders in the process of shaping the destinies of the next generation. I think this is a very vital thing we are doing. And I want to thank all of you for being part of this conference, all those who are attending. Let me also acknowledge all the other resource persons that are part of this conference. Obviously, my brother and friend, Pastor Annie. I want to thank you. And I want to thank somebody I call my younger brother, Pastor Wisdom Osiri, and obviously Dr. Emmanuel Abraham. I want to thank all of you and for all the big words that have come and the ones that are yet to come. So I have a very simple assignment today, and that is to share some thoughts. I mean, for me, it's just to start this conversation. We can continue it after now. The thought is around how do we raise godly children in an ungodly world? How do you raise godly seeds at this time? And in order to delve into this, I want to just give you like a framework, how we are going to get around this. So I'm going to be covering 4 main sections. I will talk to you about the context, the environment where we are in, how things seem to be shaping up. I will, give you some insight about that. And then we will look at how we have been responding. I will share with you what I call how not to treat an enemy, right? I will show you the bad response to the things we're finding in our environment today. And the fourth thing I'm going to be talking about will be parental leadership, i.e., so how do we then appropriately respond to what we find in our society today? And the final thing I will talk about will be about male leadership, and especially what I call the rise of the 5-star man. I believe this is what should happen in every home if we are to properly secure the destinies and lives of the next generation. Okay. And so to just set the ball rolling, I want to say that even the blind can smell and feel and sense that our world has gone out of whack, as it were. Things are not the way they should be. Our world has become a place where black has become white and white has become black, right? It is obvious. We see it everywhere. It's almost as if there's a premium price paid if we behave more like Sodom and Gomorrah. That's how the environment, it is that bad, right? I was just going through something the other day, and we hear all manner of things. A young lady, posted something and, was sharing with friends that she has happily married her mother, right? Essentially, the mother raised her without a father figure. She loves the mother. She doesn't want to part with the mother, and therefore she decided to marry the mother. This is not an isolated case. We've had all kinds of things happening everywhere. So you were a little bit disturbed about lesbianism and homosexuality, about Steve marrying another man and calling the man Eve, right? And about a woman marrying another woman. You were disturbed by that. But we are having mother marrying daughter, daughter marrying father, and there was a case in an African country, I won't name, where a father married someone, a man married a woman, and then was having a secret affair with the mother, and after a few years, he decided to formalize the relationship and therefore married both mother and daughter. I mean, there are crazy things all over the place. I wrote somewhere that in our time, nudity, nakedness has become a new form of dressing. Yeah, that is what we find in our environments. We are seeing babies raising other babies, as it were. And I'll just show you a few very disturbing statistics, right? These statistics are well proven, outcomes of various studies that have been conducted by very responsible people and institutions. So we hear that 50% of young adults, 50%, who are on the internet or have access to social media, they are exposed to alcohol content and indulge in alcoholism as a result of this exposure before they turn 18. And so from what they see, they turn into something else even before they get into serious adulthood. Yeah, so those are the kind of things we are hearing in our environment today. 75% of teenagers between 13 and 17, they claim that they use drugs based on the motivation they got from drug-related content on the internet. Yeah, and 5 out of 10, obviously suicide has become very normal for young people. I mean, you hear the other person has committed suicide. A child of 13 commits suicide. A child of 12, a child of 17 commits suicide. We hear that 5 out of 10 of such suicide attempts among teenagers, they are related to cyberbullying, the things that happen in the world of the internet. That's what causes some of those things, right? And we hear that, more than 80% of people that were surveyed in a particular report, they claim that their peers have seen pornographic content, sex-related content on the net, and have been driven, 80% of them have been driven to practicing the things they see on the internet by way of pornography. Obviously, these are very troubling, very troubling. I mean, I don't want to talk about rape, which has become very commonplace. All kinds of things are happening in that space. We are seeing fathers who are raping their own daughters. And I mean, all those things are happening. So we are like a generation walking with our heads when it comes to morality, right? And this is quite troubling at this time. Now, what has been our typical response to this sort of events that are happening around us? The kind of breach in the moral compass of society that we are finding. How have we been responding? How have parents been responding? I think that's a critical question. With all the things we are seeing, how are we engaging in our parenting activities? Now, I want to read a very interesting story from the Bible. And I will tell that story in an inverted order. It is not your typical way of relating to that story. I will retell that story in a different light, and let's see what we can glean regarding how not to respond to this sort of events that we are seeing all around us. And it's the story of Samson. I call it the Parable of Samson. So let me read you this very interesting portion from Judges 16 verses 25 to 26, and then I'll jump to 29 to 30. Just 4 verses I'm going to read, and I will tell you this story. And it says, and when their hearts were merry, they said, call for Samson, that he may make sport for us, entertainment. So they called blind Samson out of the prison, and he made sport for them. They made him stand between the pillars, i.e. the pillars of the big auditorium where they were holding this entertainment, this big event. Right. And Samson said to the lad who held him by the hand. So a lad was holding Samson. He said to the boy, allow me to feel the pillars upon which the house rests, that I may lean against them. And Samson laid hold of the two middle pillars by which the house was borne up, one with his right hand and the other with his left. And Samson cried, "Let me die with the Philistines." And he bowed himself mightily, and the house fell upon the princes and upon all the people that were in it. Now listen to this. So the dead whom he slew at his death were more than they whom he slew in his life. I'm going to retell you this story and put it upside down. We've always seen the Philistines as the enemies of Samson and of the Israelites. But let's flip this and look at it from the point of view of the Philistines, right? And look at it from the point of view that Samson was their enemy, was a threat to the Philistines. Okay, so listen to this. Now, if you remember all of the story of Samson, his big strength and the kind of battles he fought, and how many people he was able to destroy, you will remember that a typical Philistine soldier, when he hears about Samson, it is with a sense of dread that he responds. The Philistines dreaded Samson. They were afraid of him. I need us to have that at the back of our mind. So the standard way they responded to a Samson was that they were scared of him. They were cautious. They were very careful about dealing with Samson. Now this continued until, you know the story, how they used Delilah to trap him and all of that, and they chained him. They took out his eyes and they chained him. In other words, technically they demobilized him. And so when they demobilized him, gradually their fear of him began to leave them. Yeah? So keep that in mind. That dread for this enemy started going because they had brought him home to their land. In other words, they had sort of domesticated this enemy. Samson was a dangerous man, remember, but because they had conquered him in quote in war, brought him home, he was in their home. What that meant was they had domesticated him, and gradually they mastered him, and they started letting their guards down. They started feeling Samson wouldn't hurt anymore. I hope you are following this. He wasn't hurting anymore. But guess what? The more their dread of him was waning or draining, the more his hair, that stingy hair of power and danger, the more that hair was growing. Take note of that. They were getting less and less afraid of him, but he was getting more and more dangerous. On the reverse. Take note of that. But then remember, the danger was still in him. Even though they appeared to have domesticated him, the danger was still with him. He had simply transformed from an obvious enemy, an obvious danger, to a chained grinder at the mills. In other words, he was grinding for them. He had now become something of utility to them, a useful enemy. Please follow this. He had gradually started transforming. He was no longer that obvious, dangerous in quote enemy. He was now useful. They could use him to do a few things. He was no longer an obvious enemy. He was now a covert enemy that was not clearly seen. Now, next, we hear that they brought him to entertain. So the second part of the transformation of Samson, the first part was that he was a useful enemy. The second part, he had become an entertainment. They were bringing him out to come and entertain them. He will display, flex his muscles, do a few things, and then everybody roars and shouts and gets excited at the display of strength that he had. So, two transformations of Samson: a useful enemy and then an entertainer. And when I say entertainer, does it not occur to you that there are things that we used to dread as a people? We wouldn't want to touch them because there was danger in them, It was so obvious. And then these things have been repackaged by society, repackaged by the enemy, and brought back to us, and we bought them because they appear useful and some of them appear entertaining. And so gradually, it didn't matter where some of the people in Hollywood, in Nollywood, where they are drawing from, the spirit behind them, because they are entertaining us, we don't care about where they are drawing from or what they are saying or what spirit they are releasing. So we enjoy Beyonce, yeah? We enjoy Lady Gaga, yeah? We enjoy the whole horde, the armies from hell. You may not like me for this, but I must say this to you. We are beginning to enjoy them. They carry the sting of death inside them, but they're entertaining us, and we are having all those amorous steps in dancing, and we look at them, they entertain us, and we are feeling comfortable with those, but their sting of death hasn't left them. And so what we used to dread, what we used to handle at arm's length, we brought home to ourselves, and so social media is there. It's become useful. After all, we use it to, do some of our businesses and so many other things, pass around information. But can I tell you also, it is eating our souls up. The contents are horrible. Pornography has been transformed. The days of blue film are gone. You don't do blue films any longer, right? Blue films, we remember in those days, it needs to be in one big cassette, and then you need to go and play somewhere and be in a dark place and start hiding it from people. But today, you can, in the comfort and the simplicity and ease of your phone, you can be looking at that while your spouse is sitting by the side. Am I talking to anybody? And these things are looking useful and entertaining, but what is it? They are exposing our souls to danger. They are killing us by installments. That's what I'm seeing. Is a useful enemy, is an entertaining enemy, and we find it all over the place. Next, we are not only exposing ourselves to all these things and exposing our souls because they are useful and because they are entertaining, but we are finding something. We're also exposing our kids to them. Do you see something? The day they captured Samson, they sent their best men, the most powerful in the army, because of their dread. Those were the people that were sent. Where Delilah will shout, Samson, Samson, your enemies are against you. You know who they sent? They sent their best men. They sent the crack team to go after. But because they thought they had domesticated Samson, friends, watch this very closely. The day we find Samson in that massive hall, being called to entertain the audience, who is holding Samson by the hand? It was a lad. It was a lad. It was a kid. It was a little boy. And so the things we dreaded before, we have not only accepted today, we've also exposed our children to them. And our children are watching the things we are watching. They are watching all the junk from Nollywood to Bollywood to Hollywood. They are watching them. They are watching the well-crafted witchcrafting that is done through, all of the a number of the kids programs, some of the cartoons that are done. I sat down one day watching my daughter, put her face on the TV and is getting excited and is smiling. And I looked at the TV. What was it? It was a woman that was half human, half fish. We used to call it mame water in those days. That's what we called it in my time. And it was something to dread. It wasn't something to expose myself to. And I said to her, what are you watching? What is that thing called? She said, that's a mermaid, Daddy. That's a mermaid. And she said it so nicely. It sounded so funky. It sounded so sexy, like we say today. And she said, it's a mermaid. I said, do you know what it is? She didn't know. And they are teaching your children witchcraft. And they are I'm telling you, there are sessions, some of those series, they teach them witchcraft using all the cartoons. And they teach all those things. And the children are seeing this. And they are seeing how you can chant something and something will lift into the air. And so when they are offered to come and practice that, they will not have any defenses because it's a mind control system. That's what is going on. Right? And they're already used to it. They're already accustomed to that. Where did they watch it? They watched it at home, not in an enemy camp. It was at home they watched it, and the parents were there. So it's acceptable. That's the message we have sent to them. And so it was a lad that was leading Samson. This dangerous, deadly Samson. It was now a lad that was leading the enemy by the hand. So the things we used to dread, we are now letting our children get exposed to them. All the corruption and show of shame that we find all around us. And we do nothing because we too enjoy them. They are useful and they're entertaining. Don't forget that. So make no mistake. The purpose of the enemy, the purpose of Samson is one. It is to lay hold on the central pillars that hold your life, that hold your family, that hold your marriage, that hold your children together. Samson, in this instance, the enemy said on that day, lead me to the central pillars that hold his house. That's how it all goes. That is the purpose of the enemy. All of the evil you are seeing around us, the purpose is to bring down your life, bring down your future, bring down the future of your children. So at the height of that entertainment, we see Samson gradually transforming back again from the useful entertainer to what it really was, what he really was, an enemy of destiny, an enemy out to destroy. That's how he transformed. Yet, an unsuspecting and an insensitive people, we don't know it. We don't know the enemy is coming gradually with all these things and laying hold and taking over our souls and the souls of our children. We don't know it. The hair has now fully grown back. Don't forget. And it was set to release that sting of wholesale death. That was he was about to launch. And so he now turns to the lad and says, lead me to the central pillars. And the lad had always been used to the entertainment, didn't know what we know. You know, in your generation, you saw this thing as sinful at one point, but they never had that frame of reference. They grew up seeing these things as normal. All right? We call them digital natives. Our children have been born with iPhones and with smartphones, with Facebook and with Instagram, fully on ground. So all they know is about the entertaining enemy, about the useful enemy. They didn't know the story of Samson, how he took the jawbone of an ass and slaughtered hundreds of people, how he set foxes on fire on their tails and moved into the camp of the enemy, how he killed so many of their people. The lad didn't have that frame of reference, and an unsuspecting lad thought it was still entertainment and led Samson, obliged Samson, led him to the chambers of his future, of his destiny. And what do we find? The whole house came crashing down. And the last verse of that scripture is what I want to call your attention to. It said the number of people Samson killed at his death, when he was weak, when he was domesticated, when he appeared harmless, it was more. Can I announce something to you? A covert enemy, an enemy that is not too apparent, is more lethal than the enemy that you can see very obviously. If a mame water dresses like mame water and comes here, we will stand and resist it. But if it comes through a song to release a sting on you, You won't know. You'll be dancing until it pierces your soul. Let's be careful about the friendly enemy. And it's all over us, all around us. This is the sad reality. That what we used to dread, we now play with it. What we used to dread, our children are now allowed to handle them. Just last week, the report was all over all the major news networks. A 21-year-old American lady, Shamaya Lane, I'm sure you heard about it, was having a work-related Zoom meeting. She was having a Zoom meeting. Her colleagues were seeing her in the Zoom meeting. And the next thing they heard was the blast, the deafening sound of a gunshot. And they saw their colleague in the Zoom meeting drop dead. It was her toddler, her little child, that had seen an unsecured but loaded gun in the house and brought it. He remembered what he used to see on television. He remembered, because you taught a toddler how to shoot, not the mother, not the father. It was taught by an entertaining enemy. He remembered the child, a toddler could know where the trigger is, and he aimed it right at the head of the mother. Paramedics came and tried their best, but the shot was in the head, and the mother died. Why? Because we exposed an entertaining enemy to a kid, and the kid brought down the house. My friends, what's the moral of all this? I want to challenge us. Let's not grow careless and callous about the enemy whose hair of strength we once shaved. The enemy that we once defeated. Let's not allow this enemy to grow right back and destroy us. However colorful, I need you to know, however colorful, mark my word, however colorful and sleek a snake may look, its sting remains inside it. Don't you ever forget that. Don't let the enemy become your entertainment. That's my point, my friend. Chop off the head of the enemy like David did to Goliath. You see, this is the mistake that the Philistines made. They captured Samson and domesticated him. That was the problem. What do you do to an enemy that wants to shoot them? Kill it. If they had killed Samson the day they caught him, this would not have happened. Stop coddling the enemy. Stop exposing your children to the enemy. Let me move to my third point. So what should then be our response? This is how not to respond. So how should we respond? I want to make a case today for parental leadership. That's what we are called to do. We are called to show leadership. We shouldn't let leadership of our children and of our family rest with society around us. It is our call. And I want to call for fathers to return to our homes. And that's actually where I'm going to. I want to call for fathers to return. I want to call for fathers to take back their homes. We need to do that. Because you have not succeeded until your seed succeeds. Yeah. And we are having a blight on society today because of absentee fathers. I must tell you, there's the dearth of male leadership in homes today. I can tell you this for free. It doesn't matter how stubborn and aggressive my son gets at home. He can only do it when I'm not around. Once I step into the house, the atmosphere changes. That's male leadership. There's an atmosphere the man carries. But let me tell you the problem. And this is what I talk about all of the time. And this is the challenge I find. It is a challenge of the death of male leadership, but more importantly, something is against the male species. I'll tell you. You know, when I was growing up, I had a sister. I still have. It was my sister my mother will call and say to her, "You don't sit that way. A girl does not sit that way. This is how a girl sits." It is my sister that my mother will call and say, "Come into the kitchen and learn how to cook so that you know how to cook for your husband." It was my sister that was taught how to comport herself and have decorum and all of that. I found something. Nobody ever called me to tell me anything. Nobody taught me how to marry a wife. Nobody. And so this is what is happening. That the male child grows and there's no grooming for him. The girl is groomed. The male child is not groomed. And so he develops his body and gets to a point where we say, it is the age of marriage. And then the male child goes and marries. But what's the problem? It is a child in an adult body. He may be 30, but in his mind is unformed. He doesn't know how to handle a home. And we get a prepared lady and give to an unprepared man. That's part of our problem. And therefore, I am calling for a particular attention to be given again to the male child. And that is how we can raise strong leaders in the home. Because if you can't lead you can't lead anyone. You can't lead your home. And so the point I want to make here is to talk to you about what I call the 5-star man. What kind of man? And in fact, you could also use that for a mother who are 5-star parents. What do they do in order to handle our kids and position them appropriately in an ungodly world? These are a few things I think every father, every mother should do. Okay, so let's start it this way. Don't forget, a father is not only an authority figure in the home, but the single most important factor in the home. I need to establish that, right? And so when we talk about the rise of the 5-star man, if the father takes his place in a home and knows how to handle the home appropriately, every other thing falls into place. So there are about 5 key factors in raising a godly seed that I want to quickly talk about. And I'm not going to talk about the obvious ones about, giving them proper training, godly training, praying over them, and so on and so forth. We'll take those ones for granted. You have to do that. Right. But I will take a framework. There will be about 5 A's I'm going to highlight to you. Yeah? So let's start with the first one. The first one is what I call availability. You need to be available. If you must raise a godly seed, be available. Men are typically overweighted and overwhelmed with so many things. So much to live with, trying to fend for the home and so on and so forth. And so often that affects the availability for the children. And I need to show you something. But in the midst of all of those things, you need to make space for what you will consider the most important thing in your life. If I were to ask you, what is the most important thing to you? You will not typically say my business and so on, even if it is, right? You say my family. That's what people typically say, right? But if it is your family then, that is the most important thing to you, you need to make time for what you think is priority for you. Make time for your family. I think in a sense the unspoken cry of most children, and I wrote it somewhere, maybe, Dad, I need a daddy. Because sometimes we are just not available for them. And so there's a yearning in the heart of the child for a father's love, but it is not there. For a father's presence, but it is not there. Yeah? And I will say to you that the cure for busyness is prioritization. The reason why you don't give time to your home is because you've not made it your priority. The day you understand that it is critical for your success, your ongoing success, right? You will give time to your home. You can't put your career, your business, even ministry above your family. It does not work. Take note of this. If you are not available to them, someone else will be available for them, and you may not like the outcome. Take note of that. I've had an incident in my life where my daughter shared some things with someone, and the person approached me and said, I think you need to spend a bit more time with your daughter. I thought I had a great relationship with her. But I went to her and I said, you shared so and so thing with this auntie? And she said yes. I said, why didn't you tell me? She said, Daddy, you are busy. I froze that day. Say you are busy. I said, what do you find me busy doing? He said, you're either on your laptop, or you're this, or you are reading, or you are that. Now, can I tell you something? If you don't make space for them, that information that you would have given them, that explanation you would have given them, someone else will give it to them. And it may not be exactly what you would have told them. And that is why you need to, as a man, as a mother, don't be distant from them. Don't alienate them. Be available. Be available to answer their questions. Be available to engage with them. All right? That is where it starts. Because if they are showing all those things, we've taken time to show all of the things happening around the environment. If you don't bring context to those things for them to understand, it is not just like saying, you don't dress that way, you don't do this, you don't. No, it's an engagement, because each generation is not our old generation where you were told to sit down, you sit down. If you ask a child today to sit down, they will ask you why. And you need to tell them why. Okay? So, number one, be available to them. Number two is what I call acceptance and affirmation. Acceptance and affirmation. As parents, we need to be an empowering and inspiring force at home. Mark my word. I say we need to be an empowering and an inspiring force at home, not just authority figures. Our kids often know us as the chairman of the census board, right? There's a problem with that. If they associate you only with somebody who censors them, who tells them what is wrong, who tells them what they should do and what they should not do, it begins to distance you from them, especially as they begin to grow up a bit more. Our kids, what I found, they crave acceptance. They are craving affirmation. I know that. I knew it firsthand with my own personal life. My father died many years ago, and we didn't have a great relationship. I mean, I respected him, all of that, but we didn't have a very close relationship. It was those normal, father-son, tension-filled relationship. But I had an uncle who took particular delight in every achievement I made. Every time I achieved something, he said, yes, I'm very proud of you. And he was always saying it. You know what I did? I was always looking forward to doing another big thing to make him say that. I was craving it. I was an adult. I'm talking about like not more than 10 years ago, right? I was craving it. And if at my age I was craving it and still crave for that affirmation now, imagine what will happen to your child. Imagine what your son is yearning for. That well done. That was a brilliant thing. And so they need affirmation. Because if you don't affirm them, they are going to do some crazy things and their mates will affirm them and they will take that. It will be a distorted affirmation. And that's why it has to be you doing it and doing it in the right way. Yeah? So even when they fail, remember, they remain our kids. They must know that. I'd like to tell you something. Identity is superior to performance. You know the reason? Performance can change. Identity does not change. And so what do? They remain my children. I affirm them knowing that this is not everything they have become. This is not all that there is about them, I should say. Right? There is more to them. And that is why I need to take out the time to do that. There is more to them. Even when they fail, they can still succeed. There is something good about each one of them. And so I must take the time to do that. I don't judge them by what they have done now. And this is not in any way denigrating the place of discipline. We'll come to that. But it is to affirm them. When they do something right, please say so. Let them feel accepted even when they fail. You know, sometimes we don't really know our children. That's what I found. We sometimes don't know them. We misread them. We check what they are doing now and then we arrive at conclusions. What if we delayed our judgment? What if we delayed our conclusions? That's what smart people do. Delay your judgment. You know, one of the stories in the Bible that really touches me is of Samuel getting into the house of Jesse and wanting to anoint a king, and Jesse did not know David. Jesse did not know. He did not see David as a king material. In fact, he didn't invite him to the party at all. It's quite intriguing, something to think about. What do you see? What do you know about your children? And sometimes what confuses us is that there could be a king among our kids, but because the kingship is covered up in stubbornness, covered up in unintelligence, covered up in laziness, you will say, covered up sometimes in rebellion, covered up in mischief, covered up by all kinds of dirt. We don't see the king behind all of those covers. Right? But learn to affirm them. That's my point. It confirms to them that they are making progress. And it inspires them to make more progress in the way you are raising them. Number 3 is authority. Obviously, authority is not just what you say and do. Authority is most of all who you are, what you represent, what you model. You need to be the moral anchor of your home. Okay? We need to represent excellence. All those things you are looking for in your children, the best version of your children that you want, you need to exemplify that. Be their model for excellence. Be their model for courage. Be their model for hard work. You can't be a lazy father, tossing up and down in bed and then you expect your children to work hard. It doesn't work. Yeah? So be their model. Be their model in authenticity. I'm telling you. Be real. Don't cover things. Don't be that kind of parent who was always coming first in all his exams when he was a child until we find a report card. Right? Don't be that. Be the model for drive, for passion, for faith. Be their model. Be their model for demonstrating responsibility. Be their model for, having initiative. Be their model for knowledge. Be their model for respect for other people. Okay? Now, make effort to create family values. I'll tell you something. Every family is a tribe. I deliberately call my family the tribe of Benjamin. It's a tribe. It's a brand. Every tribe in Israel had a brand. It had a character. People that come out of your family should have a character. Every family is like a manufacturing plant. There is something you produce. There's a standard for the kind of product that comes out of your tribe, out of your manufacturing entity. That's what it is. And the day you begin to see things that way, that there's a brand you are creating. And for brands, there are standards. There are things that are allowable, and there are things that are not allowable. You need to ensure you create that. All right? Create, because brands come by design. You need to design what that brand should be. So I will ask you, what brand does your family represent? What does it represent? What is the character of your tribe? That's your family. What's the character? So there needs to be family values. All right? And in enforcing and implementing family values, so sometimes you may be required to demonstrate tough love. It can happen. Don't shy away from it. Don't do it. The kids must know that not everything that is good to them is good for them. There needs to be boundaries, because you are creating something. And when you are creating something, not everything is allowed. And so please sit over your family as an authority figure. Sit over your kids as an authority figure. Remember, we spoke about authority after we had spoken about acceptance and affirmation. Don't forget that. And there's a reason why I did that. People respond more if you are correcting them when you love them. People respond better. If you love and they can see through to your heart that you are committed to them, they will respond better to tough love. Yeah? Okay, so we go to number 4. Number 4 is activation. Activation is my way of saying empower your child. Empower your child, right? Empower your child through teaching, through training, and through coaching. Empower them. Pour into them. Pour yourself into them. What my best times, my most fulfilling times, are those times when I spend time with my kids and my wife, and I'm pouring into them, and I'm running series for them. I've done marriage seminars for them, teaching them how to marry a wife, including my 13-year-old. He has to go through that, and letting them know the areas, telling them my story, as it were. Tell them your story. Let them know your story. Let them know what brought you to where you are. Let them also know, don't forget, it's not just the nice stories. Let them know the areas where you failed and the lessons you learned from them. You see, it doesn't work. It's not part of authenticity to create that image of a never go wrong person. No, it doesn't work, because you're not. They will see through the lie and deception. Yeah? So let them know. That is how, you connect with them, and you begin to model something for them, and you begin to mold them. That's how it's done. Yeah? Know that children are born. I must tell you this. Children are born, but sons are made. Children are born. Sons are made. Sons are built. Sons are crafted. Sons take time to build up. Giving birth is for a moment, but building a child is for a lifetime. I'll tell you sincerely. So when you hear that scripture, I think it's Isaiah 9:6, that says, unto us a child is born, and unto us a son is given. That's what it is saying. All right? That's what it's saying. You need to then take the time to build your child. All right? And I must tell you, it's the same thing for the girl child. You need to spend time on the girl child. I'm not just talking about your son. Spend time on the girl child. Mother, be her first love. Be her first date. I do that with my own daughter. Thankfully, I have only one, so there's nobody to be jealous. Yeah? So you spend time and be her first date. Be the love of her life. Demonstrate to her, value her. Make her look like a queen. If you treat her like a queen, she will not allow any shabby treatment. She will not allow anybody tell stories around her and make her expendable. Yeah? So do that. That is number 4. So spend the time and do grooming. Just groom that child. Groom the child. That's where the gap often is. The grooming gap. Particularly in father-son relationships. We find at that time of pouring in, they are distant. Things are apart like this between, fathers and sons. But spend the time, make the effort, take the initiative to build them. Okay? And the final thing, and that's why I'm going to be closing this session, right, is what I've called acceleration. Acceleration. Acceleration is my way of saying think legacy. All right? Think legacy. How does what started with you pass on and extend to generations coming? Think in that manner. Don't let greatness stop with you. Yeah? You've created so many things around. Are your children prepared to create theirs? Right? Because why children get into all kinds of things? Sometimes because they are not engaged. So if you build them to be engaged, they may find little time for all the nonsense going on around the world. Yeah? So please think legacy. Pass on value to the next generation. Pass on value. That's what we are called to do. Fire your kids. Fire them. Fire them. Fire them so much that they can go farther than you have gone. That's how it's done. Yeah? You know, because again, God is a generational God. God does not want what He started with you to end with you. In fact, He wants the generational tree to get better and better, richer and richer, greater and greater. That's the plan. See the foundation Abraham laid. See what the Jews have made of it today. I'm telling you, it's amazing. It's amazing. I heard Benjamin Netanyahu the other day talking and bragging on Israel. He was bragging on Israel. You know, he bragged and said, we have improved on what Moses did. Those were his words. He said, Moses brought water out of a rock. Israel, by technology and by innovation, is able to bring out water out of thin air. That's what he was bragging on. Because that's how God reasons. God wants a better and better generation springing up. And I close with this thought. Don't you ever forget this. Your true success, your greatest success, is in the quality of your family. Your greatest success is in the quality of that son, of that daughter, is in that spouse. That is your greatest success. You have not succeeded until your children do. You have not. I want to say, my friends, having gone through all of this, let me challenge us again. Our world is almost walking with its head on the ground. But we can create an oasis in our various spaces, in our families, and begin to build strong children, godly children, faith-filled children, children whose minds are empowered to take their world by storm. You can create something that is different from the mold that we find all around us. I wish you well. I pray that your family will be distinct in the earth. I pray that your family will stand out among many. I pray that the families of the earth may be blessed because of your family. Thank you for listening to me. God bless you, and God bless you, and God bless you.